Okay, can you make sure... We have to put this in the top of the episode so everyone knows we feel very bad. Can you make sure my audio is real shitty this time? If you turned on the basement filter, the endless pit of despair filter.
I still think it's the funniest thing about that last week was that despite Sam being the furthest sitting from you, his mic picked up your voice the best.
It's my level's the highest. I'm most sensitive.
Not even.
The most disturbing part of audio quality gate was that people were saying that somebody was chewing, and I genuinely don't remember any of us chewing.
Yeah, and lip smacking, which I don't know where that would be in relation to other episodes. If somebody's lip smacking in that episode, they're lip smacking in all of them.
It's up to the listener to figure out, and then dox whoever was doing it.
I guess I'm exonerated because you can barely hear me. Yeah. So presumably, if I was lip smacking, you wouldn't, you'd struggle to hear it.
If you're ever hearing ice cubes crackle together, that's my cognac while I'm in my Hugh Hefner jacket over here.
No, that's just you sitting. In your sitting on the battery of Charleston Island character, just having a nice iced tea.
Oh my heavens.
Maybe it was Luna that was chewing.
Oh. She was chewing the whole time.
Chewing the whole time.
I don't know about lip smacking though.
She has no lips.
Well,
she does
she has an alibi, I guess.
Dogs don't have lips.
Yeah.
Well, it's episode 260 of View from 202. It feels genuinely bizarre to be here talking about to be recording another episode within a week instead of 3 weeks.
I wasn't expecting to do this either. By the 60th minute of the game, I was like, "Oh yeah, we can take some time between our next episode."
That's true. Well, I wasn't thinking about it, to be honest. The future felt condemned. It felt regardless. It felt irrelevant is the better word to use there.
It still does in some ways.
So true. But it's episode 260 of View from 202. Decision day has come and gone. The decisions have been rendered.
Everybody made their decision. Everybody decided whether they wanted to win or lose a soccer game. It's a decision that you make.
I hope you marked your door before you went to bed on decision day. If you're still here with us, then I guess you did. And I guess you marked it red because the Red Bulls that we made it, baby.
Wow.
We're gonna make it.
Wow, that's a lot of steps you put together there.
We're gonna make it. 8th place, baby. A professional performance against Nashville in Nashville's home sees the Red Bulls make it and extend it to 14 playoff appearances in a row, which I believe is the longest in sports now that Seattle's is gone.
The longest active in North American sports.
All right, not bad.
The longest in MLS.
Well,
yeah. But NBA and NHL both have 20 something odd season streaks or something. So,
but in the past,
yeah.
Okay. Well, at this rate, I'm assuming next year the MLS playoff field will be 13 teams.
Right.
So, I would bet on us. But
I was gonna say the league has to just keep rigging it until we beat the total record, so they can make more PR out of it, and then that's the goal for the league.
When is Apple gonna make a documentary
about the longest streak?
Yeah,
that's true.
I heard there's already 4 15-minute segments in development.
The only panelists will be Mark DeGrand. No actual.
I was going to make a joke about, how many LinkedIn posts are they going to draw?
No,
you won't hear from a single person involved in the soccer operation.
Mike LaBelle, obviously, is going to be one of the. It's going to be like VH1. I love the decades, but for this streak, the one guy who we signed to do TikToks who has never been seen from again,
Dan Dickinson.
Wow, yeah, that's a good one.
Judah Friedlander.
Oh God.
Mm-hmm.
Julia Stiles.
Yes, there we go. Perfect.
Ethan Zahn.
Sassaroli.
Edie Falco.
Couldn't remember if we're doxing him or not, but yeah, Edie Falco. That's another one. Steve Sharippa.
Cal Penn. Lin-Manuel Miranda.
He's not been seen. Has Lin-Manuel Miranda been at a Red Bulls game?
Yeah, he was a couple of weeks ago or a couple months ago.
Oh, he was at the Messi game?
Yeah. He was one of the big stars of the Messi game.
literally a day after I saw him at jury duty.
Damn. Well, this is the last game in a pretty good little run of form towards the end of this season, actually. I mean, we won 4 of our last 5 games to make it into the playoffs.
Nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And before that, I mean, we drew the 2 games previous. We drew against City. We drew against Austin, beat DC, lost to Chicago when it was all over, and then beat Cincinnati, beat Toronto, and beat Nashville. So, I know we've been a bit downtrodden, a little bit low energy on this podcast as of late, but one must look at the form guide and say that's a nice little decent stretch of results here, and indeed it did get us into a position I wasn't necessarily expecting. Now,
not just 9th but 8th.
Yeah, I don't think any of us actively said like, oh, we're not going to make it. In fact, I would argue, the tape I think would show quite well that we were kind of just disregarding the importance of the question of making the playoffs.
If anything, we were joking that it would be hilarious if we did, but which it still is pretty hilarious.
The way that it happened was even funnier.
We almost even made, no, sorry. I will correct my stance after glancing down at the table. We did not almost make 7th place. We were 6 points off of that. So, but that 7th is a slightly more normal amount of teams to make it. And we will discuss, I guess, the playoff format in general down the road here, as well as some comments by manager Troy Lesane before anticipating our game against Charlotte FC on Wednesday. But we should just talk about this 1-0 win at Nashville.
Second time in 4 years that we've clinched playoffs in Nashville on the last day of the season.
For my money, this was a fairly professional, if unremarkable game, I have to say.
Right.
The big standout moment, obviously, is the penalty in stoppage time. But dare I say, we looked a little bit more competent and put together than Nashville throughout. I struggle to recount any Nashville danger, really.
It kind of was that way. There was, Nashville's one of the better teams in the conference in the league, and to keep them tight and cagey for 90 minutes is not, or 80 minutes before we started to break through. Again, not anything to sneeze at. And again, it's just a kind of an echo of that game from the end of 2021, which was also, mind you, that game was getting the goal from Fabio in that one kind of early, but as opposed to this one, just sort of waiting it out. But another game where it's just, playing Nashville's style, as we kind of commented as we were watching the game the other night. Nashville's one of those teams, one of those MLS teams that, gets by and stays, at the top of the tide year after year, just through, making sure they don't give up a goal before they score. I mean, mind you, we've certainly been in, the doldrums end of that, but when it's done successfully, the way a Nashville team does, it's a very effective way to keep yourself in contention year after year in MLS. So we were playing the game on their terms and then ended up coming out on top. Kind of everything that was asked from, last game of the season. And as Brit was prefacing with the general form, the last month of the season, pretty much about as successful as you can ask.
Yeah, no.
I was going to say, I feel like there were a few chances in the first half that Nashville had, right? There was, did one go off the crossbar?
I don't know if it went off the crossbar. I think there was one that went a little above, there was one that went wide.
Okay, there was one that went wide, and then there was, I think what I missed was there was like an alleged, penalty shout, and nothing came of it.
Oh, that's right. That's when Cornell hit Alex Muil.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I didn't think
in real time. I was like, there was no way.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't even see a replay of it or anything. I was on the train heading over when it happened. But I feel like had some questions about the defense, a little, especially with Sean Nealis. I think we were talking about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I would say overall, like great game for the team. Like they executed, they got what they needed to get done on the road on decision day. But I thought that there were a few moments where Sean just, I think, and we've said this a few times on previous episodes, he just didn't look nearly as sharp as he did in the past, maybe because he was bailed out by Long, in the other partnership where I think he performed pretty well. But I thought there was a few examples where I just don't think he was up for it.
Yeah, not to like dig in on him too much because I don't think he's a bad player, no context. But I think as unfortunately, I guess, being the kind of senior anchor of the defense and the team captain, there's a little bit of a higher bar for not just your technical play and production and all that kind of stuff, but also just kind of your presence and the way you carry yourself. And just there's so many. I mean, obviously there's Nealis's personality, which is a little bit more laid back and kind of nondescript and non-demonstrative, I guess. But then also kind of like what we're just saying, it bleeds into the technical side of it too, where it's just there's so many kind of dodgy moments and just kind of shaky moments like that where you need your captain to be the guy who's kind of, I mean, it's kind of part of what the role of the captain is, the guy who's closest to perfect and the guy who's, leading by example is the cliche, but like literally, yes, like, the way I'm doing it is the bar that everybody should be, holding themselves to. And when the guy holding the bar is, kind of having a calamity, a few times a game, that bleeds into team morale. So, hopefully there's some more kind of leader figures that come into the team in the near future. And then, like I said, starting this off, this isn't to just like bash Sean Nealis or even say that he needs to be like cut or shipped out. I just think that he shouldn't, a player like him should not have as prominent of a role as he's been expected to carry this year.
Yeah, and as we've said a couple times, it's a shame that he was sort of named captain because his role that he had last year is he's perfect at that, being like an above average third center back that I think few teams in the league, even with the improved quality across the board the last couple of years, few teams in the league have a third center back as good as he is. But as a captain, it now makes it so it's awkward if we bring in a center back this offseason that displaces him. And then we either have a captain on the bench or we have to, formally give the captain to someone else. But that is a problem for later. And also I think the problem here is that, our cliff, of course, between him and Dom is so steep. I mean, and Dom has had some okay performances this year, but it's a very clear pairing of who our top two are. But yeah, I think that was visible against Nashville. Nashville, for their part, they're 7th place team on the year. Ultimately, they place right above us on the table with 49 points. But they did have something to play for on Saturday, and they had the opportunity to get into 6th and surpass Atlanta. Indeed, Atlanta drew, so if they had beaten us, they would have gotten into that 6th place. Now, how much does that matter? I don't know, but they did play a full squad.
Yeah.
They had Alex Muil playing, they had Mukhtar playing, they had Sean Davis, they had Joe Willis playing, Anibal Godoy was starting, Zimmerman was starting, so it was the full squad, and I think they're giving it their go. So it's not nothing that this Red Bulls team was able to take it to them. And, especially looking at the context of 4 out of 5 wins, I mean, you do have to say that as much as I sort of rolled my eyes a little bit at the raw atmosphere, that the team was projecting publicly, it seems like that, the manager did get the boys up for this, this push down the stretch here. And good Lord, it did work. here we are. And I think there's something to say about the consistency in the lineup here once again. Got Frankie Amaya and Daniel Ottoman starting in the midfield. You got Barlow and Manuel starting up top, and Niels and Reyes anchoring the center. And I think you saw a little bit more coherency and fluidity from that unit as a result. And even leading up to before we even earned the penalty, I do think we were saying and remarking that, in terms of desperation play coming from this squad in the last 2 years, this is some of the better desperation play that we'd been doing, and we were actually creating some chances, and lo and behold, it did actually result in a penalty.
It's fine. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I had forgotten about us saying that in the lead up to the penalty, because I had just said that kind of more in a vacuum too. I wasn't even saying that in terms of like, this is good, relative to what we've been used to with Red Bulls in chasing results at the end of games. This is like, I was saying in terms of like any soccer team, I was like, as far as desperation play at the end of a game goes, this is like pretty clean, effective stuff that we're playing here. And then eventually, they're able to get the penalty. But it was a very, very earned penalty as much as that goes. And I mean, I think that's just kind of a microcosm of what we saw over the course of the season. And this isn't to say that, we were playing like 1970 Brazil or whatever, the last few months, but compared to where they were at the start of the season and the last couple of years, honestly, under Struber, just a much more coherent and fluid attack that, ended up creating, I mean, we lost track of the Tappan meter over the last couple months. I mean, we were scoring much, cleaner, more cohesive goals, in some games, scoring them in, significant numbers too, which is a change. So, I think I think you can really see about as much squeezed out of this team as you could possibly hope for over the last couple months of this season, a season that was abandoned effectively, with an interim manager or a caretaker. And they say Lassane is, was given the permanent job, but let's be honest, he's been, caretaking since May before the club can kind of decide what they want to do. And they sold one of their better players with Cáceres. There weren't really significant reinforcements done in the summer transfer window. Morale seemed as low as possible. And then, teams like that, even with a manager who's working hard, often still continue to fail and snowball and all that kind of stuff. And that didn't happen here, and that's not nothing. It was a pretty impressive little run to end the season, and it should be applauded,
Yeah, one thing that stuck out to me in a lot of the quotes coming from the players as well is that when people ask them about Lassane and kind of especially in the wake of the rumors of him potentially getting the job, and also just speaking about this little run, people they mention changing the clubhouse culture. A lot of players have mentioned that specifically, which I think is notable. If you even wearing a little bit of cynical goggles on the situation, and you assume players are going to say something nice about their coach no matter what, they still have a choice of like what the complimentary thing they're going to say about the coach is. And to me, it sticks out that that's the thing that multiple guys have landed on it. And as we discussed a lot of times this season, it seemed plainly apparent that the morale and vibe around this team when Struber was here was terrible and is off. So it does seem promising that that seems to have been legitimately something that got turned around. So that said, with all these optimistic things, when I was watching this game, I also really did have this feeling of like, when thinking about this team making a playoff run and thinking about what the maximum ceiling would be, I was thinking, man, if going away to Nashville, although a very solid, competent but sort of unremarkable team, is such a monumental lift for us to try to get a result, it feels very hard to imagine pushing through and like making a realistic run still with this squad. If it really feel like they threw everything they had in, is still the best we were able to create was from a penalty, very professional, very good note to end the season on. But it does kind of feel like we're already pushing at like 105% here.
Yeah.
Which is nice to see, but yeah, better than
It's going to be hard it's going to be hard to do that like 7-8 times in a row,
right,
to win a trophy.
Yeah.
know? So
especially with this big format now, which maybe this is a good opportunity to talk about the format. Because once again, the format has changed.
Well, do we maybe want to, before that, just go over Lissane's comment too about just what,
Yeah,
what it meant to, get this result and what it didn't mean, I guess, is
that's
the other
true.
crucial
Yeah, maybe
part.
that's good first, because talking about this note of kind of mixing optimism or appreciation for a legitimately good little run here at the end with a bigger picture. Troy Lissane did have a longer sort of quote and he gave in response he gave in the press conference afterwards that did address this pretty much on the head. And I'll just read it in full here. The club's comms officer, Andrew Visano, posted it full. So if you want to find it excerpted, you can go to his Twitter too. So Lissane said, "I want to be really clear about this. This is not a distraction from a season that is acceptable for our fans. It's not acceptable what's happened this season. For that matter, the last 4 or 5 seasons, we need to do better as a club. This is a special club. I'm very happy to extend our history, but that does not distract us from the fact that we have to do better and put ourselves in a better position. We're going to do that by investing more, and I don't mean that just as a financial statement. I mean time, thoughtfulness, energy, and everything we do, because that's what the club deserves. We've been well on our way on that over the last 6 months to really set the club in a right new direction, and we have a lot more work to do. This is something for me that is an achievement, but we have a match Wednesday. That is a job at hand, and that is not the finish line for us. We wanted to create a new finish line, and believe me that Wednesday is an opportunity to go beyond just getting in and sneaking into the playoffs." So I think that was a good synopsis of the situation. And, I think it's also been sort of at odds with how the rest of the club has presented the situation and the achievement on Sunday. It's a bit trite, and I know I've been going heavy on this the last couple episodes, but my immediate thought was like, oh, this is a great quote. It'd be great if the people managing the social media for the team could read it, because it's not the vibe that the club is putting out through its posts and its statements and the way it's presenting itself to the public. And I do think there's an element here of, it being a little bit embarrassing of the club celebrating and like treating it as though like the best thing that's ever happened. I am cautious of being too much of a curmudgeon. But it was like, come on, let's, just as Troy said, like this is not the be all end all. There is not that long ago in our history where we were aiming for actual excellence at the top of the table. So I would like to see that tone continued more than what we've been seeing from the communication side of the club.
Yeah, and I mean, this is also just, I guess trite to say too, but I mean, in comparison to the previous 2 permanent managers, the way they described their situation, like a kid being dragged to the principal's office, making excuses for results that weren't even as bad as what this season ended up being. And, it's the special club line is, kind of important to hear. I mean, certainly within the orbit of this show, and just kind of seemed palpable across the fan base in general. But there didn't seem to be a lot of dignity and pride left in the club, and to hear a manager say that, like, yes, this is a team that does have a history and does have a reputation to uphold and does have standards is a significant thing to hear. And the other thing too about, I thought it was a very important distinction to make too, as far as saying like not just financial energy, but all the other kind of intangibles that go into success. I mean, it's a very complicated picture, and it's very hard to be a successful soccer team or any kind of sports team. And you need to have every aspect of the operation going well. And that seems like an acknowledgement that, not everything has, and even doing your best in this situation is not quite enough. So it's just, all in all, just a very refreshing thing to hear, and nice to hear a statement that does respect the club and doesn't just say like, oh well, you can't expect anything from me because this club's so flawed or whatever. Like that's not what you're hired for. That's not what you're paid to do. You're when you're hired as a manager, when you take the job, you are doing the best you can and not designing excuses for yourself. And this was the opposite of that, to make a statement like this, especially on a night when you're getting so much goodwill for, a good result. So, pretty, courageous moment. Gotta say.
I think everyone will be laughing when we're lifting the MLS Cup at the end of the season. Yay, hooray. Let's go Red Bulls.
I feel like there's so much that feels like there's a whole another season that has to happen
before that happens. I mean, I guess, yeah, there's like another month and a half left.
I mean, there's Wednesday. Yeah. Because so what we've qualified for is the wild card play-in round, which is now the 8th seed versus the 9th seed. So now we get to host a playoff game. And now, if we win that game, there's now a conference semifinals round that is a best of 3 format, which is it feels like a throwback to, like, I don't know. I don't remember the 90s formats exactly, but like the 96 to like 2000 formats, I feel like must have had something similar.
Yeah, I came in mid 2000s when they were already doing just two game aggregates.
Right. But it's like feels like
which they should have stayed with that, but that's all. Yeah.
American style thing where it's 3 games, home, away, home, and no draws and no extra time for any of this. It goes straight to penalties, and a penalty win counts as a full win.
Remember the League's Cup? It's back in Pog form. couldn't think of a counterpoint, but
it's Pog back in but yeah, I don't know. It's in League's Cup. Honestly, in a way, it felt less crazy to me. Maybe just because League's Cup I was like, oh, this is already fake. Might as well, why add 30 minutes to each match?
But turns out it was the laboratory for fascism.
Yeah. So it's a weird one, and it's also the fact that it's only for the first round is strange to me. I also want to acknowledge that this was presumably announced like months ago, and this is the first time I'm
not
looking
even
at it,
really. I don't think they confirm. I mean, the last few years they haven't confirmed what the playoff format's going to be until like mid-season.
Yeah, I did go and double check just because I was thinking about that,
which is a very big like global problem for the league.
Yeah. But the timestamp on this was February 21st, which is, I think, before the league started, but also that it's still like weirdly late.
Teams have done all their planning and deciding how they're going to approach the season. Like, yeah, I mean, it's like, if you're gonna, I mean, well, the underlying motivation for this changed playoff format is the Apple deal, and that Apple wants more airtime and games to sell and all that kind of stuff. To where I'm like, if you want to have a 3-game series, or if you're that dead set on having, teams play it out for 3 games, just do a group stage at that point.
Right.
Just turn it into a full on, tournament for the best teams in MLS, and make it like a World Cup for MLS, and have like a group stage. That's more fair than that would be more fair than any other playoff format that they've had in the league's whole history, where every team gets 3 games against 3 different teams to prove themselves before they go on to the next round. I think that would be a genuinely good format as opposed to like an ad hoc,
like 4
sort
groups
of scrapped together one like this one is.
4 groups, same amount of teams, right? That'd be like 8.
Top 8.
Yeah, top 8, right? Yeah, instead of top 9.
And they could still do this. Well, they could still do top 9 and have this play-in game, I guess. I guess it's just all the rage now to have the play-in games in all sports. I mean, baseball did the wild card games. I guess NCAA basketball does like a bunch of play-in games now as opposed to the one that they used to do. So there's the college football playoffs.
Football ruined their like perfect numerology. The only thing American football had going for it.
The perfect 16 brackets. Yeah,
exactly. That's the point where football lost its soul and went to the devil, clearly. Coincidence? Gambling shows up like pretty much at the exact same time. Do not fuck with the number 16.
Bottoms up and the devil laughs.
Exactly. But for me, it's the lack of symmetry. Like, in a way, like, just like, all right, do your weird, like, round of 3 for all of this. But having it only be the intro round, what is that? I'm wondering if part of the motivation is, do they think that it's going to, like, hedge against top seeds losing? Like, that seems like it might be part of it.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Just adding more games, and I guess that's a fair end of it. But again, to what I'm saying, you might as well just do a 4-team group.
Right. I also think if that is the motivation, I don't know if it'll work that way. Because, I mean, it makes it so that, if you can eke out a draw, it's a penalty shootout, like I could easily see it still leading to upsets, no problem.
We see what a bye week does to a sports team in the playoffs.
Clearly. So. And then, we still have the same perennial scheduling thing that MLS has where the
playoffs have to be broken up for the break.
So now it's the wildcard matches are this week on Wednesday and Thursday. Then the round 1 best of 3 series are October 28th through November 12th, which is 2 weeks. And then the conference semis are and conference finals run through November 25th to December 3rd. So that's like they're restarting after Thanksgiving, which I guess now that like Messi and everyone is in the league now, it's probably less likely than ever. But like, I still think that they if they want to be serious, they got to bite the bullet and tell this international break to shove it. Like, this is such a legitimacy problem, I think, for the competition.
Yeah.
That they always take 2 weeks off. I mean, this was a problem when the playoff format was good and straightforward, when it was just the home and away ties. We would have a break halfway between the first and second round. Like, when we played Atlanta in 2018, we had to rush back and played like Tuesday then Saturday, right? Something insane like that. Mm-hmm. So as much as as long as they kowtow to that, it's going to be a problem. But to this point, it's like right now we're sitting here on October 23rd, and MLS Cup isn't going to be till December 8th. We just had decision day, December 8th. Like, it's. So I'm not just taking the piss when I say like it feels like we still have a whole season to play, before we can even think about MLS Cup.
Well, I mean, you're not. Also, we won't be hosting MLS Cup no matter what.
Oh,
rats.
Yeah.
Damn. Oh, drats.
Yeah, we can't even do. Is there no one in the Western Conference?
Yeah.
I think the only other team, is Charlotte, who's underneath. So.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, do we want to take a gander at the bracket?
So if we,
who's in it? Who's in it? Is Manchester United in it? Who's playing this year?
Let's see.
Who all?
I think Inter Milan.
Oh my God. I mean, I guess like, is there any matchup that wouldn't feel recycled at this point? Because I just saw that if we win, we play Cincinnati, and if we just played them. But now looking at it, like, what would feel novel at this point? I don't know. None of them really.
Have we played Montreal that much this season? I feel like that's the one
They
team.
didn't make it though.
I don't
Yeah.
want to play Montreal in the playoffs. Fuck that.
No.
That's always been bad vibes.
That's also true. I mean,
I guess
There's
this
no-
will be a novel playoff matchup for us, Charlotte.
yeah.
If we win, we play Cincinnati. If we beat Charlotte, we play Cincinnati. And then if we were to beat Cincinnati, we would go to either Philly or New England.
Oh my God.
It's like, yeah, like I mean,
All right, so
I don't know.
MLS Cup is the only interesting matchup, really.
Columbus and Atlanta are playing each other, which also feels like it's happened. Like all
Right,
of these
yeah.
matchups feel like deja vu. Like Orlando and Nashville are
Well,
playing each other.
I guess
like-
it really is the paradox of just that, like, there's so many more MLS teams now. There's been so many expansion teams, and the league is so bloated. But then also, it's switched to the point where it's basically two leagues and two
You're playing the
conferences,
Eastern
and you're
Conference
playing
only.
the same league every
Yeah.
single year.
Right.
And it's a smaller league than it would be in like a European first division of 20 teams. It's like 15 teams, so it's
Right.
an even more, kind of
Crowded.
or a more repetitive version of that. So yeah, kind of the worst of both worlds in that respect with the way
That's a good
the
shout.
league's expanded.
Because, as I was reading all of these clubs, I was like, well, I was arguing with myself and I was going like, well, I'm looking at every club in the Eastern Conference and they all feel like we've played them a million times, but it's every club. So like, what am I going on about? And you're right. We used to have significantly more like Western Conference games, just like mixing it up and making
Yeah.
it feel like we weren't just playing the same guys every single week. So it's a problem. And it also, I feel like the volume of playing each other also makes it so even if it's a repeat matchup, it doesn't feel special anymore.
Right.
But
Also, the additional fixtures have just made it so that we play regionally so much. Like Leagues Cup and Open
yes,
Cup.
Leagues Cup and Open Cup. The regionalization of Open Cup. Too much. Well, Charlotte, Wednesday.
What can you say about Charlotte Football Club?
Sam, I feel like
The
you're our
C-
Charlotte.
The
Yeah, you're the-
CLT.
Yeah.
Mint City Green.
Yeah.
They got here by beating Miami on the last
Didn't
weekend.
they beat him twice, or
No, they drew once.
they drew the first one?
Yeah. That's why they're below us.
Right. Sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like,
Apparently-
fuck all about their team or like what they're. Other than every time I feel like I've watched them, it's just been very unpleasant soccer. Like it's been a bad experience. Like the quality is so bad every time that we've played, in Charlotte. And then from what we've seen at Red Bull, what did we lost, right? Against them when they came to Red Bull Arena in October, right?
We drew with 2-2.
Oh,
It was
sure.
Chicago who
in
we lost
June.
to.
Sure. We drew.
1-1 most recently.
Yeah, and then we drew.
And then we won 2-0 on October. We won 2-0 in 2022.
Yeah. And then in the spring when we played them down there, we also drew. Was that 1-1? It was a really bad game.
Yeah, March 1. Yeah.
So we're expecting bad game.
Bad game draw.
Apparently, their manager got into a fight with a journalist like last week.
Nice.
So
That's always a good sign.
yeah, no, I was gonna say that sounds like things are going great. That's always as this club knows,
Yeah,
as
exactly.
as this show knows. That's always a sign that the coach is in control and doing great.
And has, a total handle on things.
And so maybe that's a good sign on our end because their manager Latanzio seemed to have them playing pretty well at the end of last year after their weird start where they fired that like megalomaniac manager guy who they had at first. It seemed like this new guy Latanzio, who I guess is some RG guy who was with the city coaching staff for a little bit before this, had them playing pretty fluidly, pretty sound stuff, but then I guess they haven't really put it together this year for whatever reason. So I don't know. They feel like kind of the closest you can get to sort of the generic 2023 MLS club. So I guess it is, probably one of the better litmus tests you can ask for to start a playoff run. But kind of as we've said, it doesn't feel the same as house money as we were saying over the course of the regular season. But yeah, it's kind of it's
a must-win game.
I was going to say it's not no stakes, but let's be honest, it's pretty no stakes.
Yeah,
it's pretty low stakes.
It's low stakes.
It's an odd situation because we're like the general situation feels like house money, but we finished 8th, but we're not playing a high seed. We're playing a team that you would expect us to be competitive with.
Yeah.
So, it would be, I don't know. It would be nice to see us like put them away more like comprehensively. Like, I think like the last couple of weeks, this squad has shown like increased level of professionalism and focus and being able to like not concede cheaply and then kind of just keep it together and keep pressure on the opposing team to force a goal in, even if it's not pretty or as deliberate as we would like. I'm cautiously optimistic that they can do that against a team like Charlotte at home. What would really raise my eyebrow is if we're able to actually sort of pick them apart a little bit more comprehensively for at least 1 or 2 goals. And like, especially if it were a situation where we were able to like cruise the last 15 minutes of the game and kind of just control and kill the game, that would really exceed my expectations. But right now I'm kind of sitting at a point where I'm thinking that maybe more of like a game like Nashville might be how we would win and get on and play Cincinnati.
Yeah. I mean, with the strike partnership up top, I feel like there's not a whole lot you can really ask for beyond that. I mean, I think that we were in a similar boat last year, right? We played Cincinnati at home. That was our first game in the playoffs. And it was, knockout game. And I feel like I have like kind of similar like expectations that the team just like, like at the very least might get, some result, but I don't think that we're going to be blown out, like blown away by what we deliver on the field. But I feel like we're a very different team than we were a year ago in a similar kind of position, in the playoffs. And I think one of the big things that, I think of is, and we've discussed this over the last few episodes, is that we're a much more consistent team that we bring out. We have a very similar 11 each game, barring injuries, maybe the occasional swap at right back. But like last season, we saw Andres Reyes as a right back
for the first time in his professional career
ever
in
a playoff game. And it's just very refreshing. And we've said this
that
so many times, but it's just refreshing to have some sort of stability. We have an expectation of the 11. They've all kind of played in the same spot for, over a month at this point.
That accounts for as much of the success as anything, as I've been kind of driving home the last few weeks. And, and speaks to what was so troublesome about Struber year after year as it became. Just could not settle on a single formation, a single lineup, and that's an issue. That it makes it so much harder to play over the course of a season and week to week when just nobody knows what their role is every week.
Which is like really funny because not only are you being like so flexible in that kind of rotation of what your roster is week to week, but you're so tactically inflexible at the same time that everyone,
I think it's been
a product of both of it. Yeah, obviously.
You've seen over the course of this season. I think what changed in our season. I don't think it's really any personnel or any tactic or anything. Specific tactic. I think what changed between the first and second half of the season is compared to the last 2.5 years under Struber, was we had one team that was set up to be like a science fair project, displaying all the different courses from the UEFA badge sessions, displaying all the different little keystone achievements that you have to do there, all the little projects and rubrics. And then the last few months, we've had a manager who's actually trying to run a soccer team.
Trying to win games.
Yeah. And sure enough, the team was able to grind out more results than they had been previously.
And it's I think one of the case in points you really see is maybe like Luquinhas and the way that he plays. Like he's not kind of like receiving the ball into dead man space, turning back, and then
he's not receiving the ball in a new part of the field every single week.
Yeah,
he's not arranged in a different spacing from his teammates every 10 minutes.
Yeah, but like to that point too, like more positively, like because he's receiving that a little bit more consistently, he's able to turn into space and like really attack players a lot more, like take these touches and like kind of take that space and get that transition going. That's something that, we were talking about before, like really early in the season, that we don't have players who really just like turn the ball like that and carry it and go with it like fast. And he's just been playing a little bit faster, and like you just notice what kind
doesn't have to think and figure out where he is every time he gets the ball.
But like,
that's what we've said the last few years. Going back to Armas too, but especially under Struber, where it just seemed like they were so overloaded with information. Every time a player got the ball, he had to kind of pick his head up and figure out where everybody was and what he was going to do next. Nothing was natural. Nothing was rehearsed. Everything was a new approach, a new lineup every single week, and it ends up being corrosive long term. That's what a manager's there to do. To the extent that I saw, I'm going to be honest, pretty try hard criticism of Lesane the last few weeks was this idea, his subs are bad. And it's just kind of like a manager isn't there to make, like 2 or 3 subs at the end of the game that's already kind of played its course. A manager is there to have the team set up over the course of a whole season for everybody to know what the baseline is, to know what the consistent standards are. Having the team set up in training during the week is what a manager does. And Lesane did such a better job of having the team coherently set up every week that, substitutes are not, what we're making and breaking this team. It was over the last few months, it was the team just having a coherent approach every single week that, stayed somewhat consistent was what, rose the team up. It wasn't like Struber all of a sudden, or that Lesane all of a sudden started making better subs than Struber, and that's why, they were doing well in May or June or whatever. It's just like
that is how Struber understood being a manager himself. Yeah. With like his wholesale total line changes that he would do.
Yeah, we had a team where we had a manager who thought he was the star, and that all of his different lineup changes and adjustments and doghousing players and all this stuff were what was going to, lead the team's success. And then we had a manager who actually realized, okay, these are the players I have. This is the team I have. Let's see what's the best we can make out of this. So pretty instructive season in that respect.
Yeah.
And the old manager's sucking in the new place too, as we're seeing more and more.
Is he really?
Lost his second league home game in a row.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now that the full season is in the books, we can say, looking at the points per game under Lesane, if you do extend out the 1.47 points per game to a full season, it gets us to about 49-50 points. Which puts us about even with Nashville and Atlanta. So it actually doesn't change our place in the table that much, but I think it's still sort of instructive because it does put us sort of in a next tier in the table, if you will. Right now, the table ended up being, Cincinnati way at the top, and then you had a couple teams spread out through like 55 to 57 points. And then Atlanta and Nashville were in the middle with 49 and 51. So we'd be kind of in that group instead of where we are in reality now is like 43 points. We're like the best worst team pretty much in the Eastern Conference in this situation.
That's how the second half of this year kind of felt.
Yeah.
The way we were in the hierarchy and how we were matching up against teams.
Yeah. And, that's also to say that there probably a lot of time and energy was spent trying to dig us out of the whole, like it's possible that if you have a blank slate in a preseason and not trying to erase the work of a previous failed manager, that you could even have more work done rather than trying to recover just from the 9 points in 11 matches that Struber set us up for. Well, that said, anything else about Wednesday? I mean, anything to look forward to? I think we've outlined our expectations pretty well.
Be kind of nice, if Manuel has another, like a repeat from, was that last season? It's like
those
goals.
two random
When
goals.
we
Yeah.
beat Charlotte, it was 2-0, his 2 goals. So he just comes out swinging.
Do you think Mina will play?
Mina. That would be pretty funny.
Hurtado played.
Yeah.
Oh man, Hurtado with that,
Yeah.
not running to the corner at the end. It's such a small thing, but
I was kind of into it. I was like, why not? Go for it. Have it go.
When will you have a chance again?
Right.
To do this?
You might never, you might
yeah,
never
he-
be in front of these, or wasn't even in front of his own fans. But yeah, you'll never be in this hallowed ground again.
He did not even have to run there himself. He had a player going to the corner that he could have passed it to. But
That might be his last touch on the team.
he could have a Omer Damari appearance in the playoffs. Don't rule
Get
it
a red
out.
card.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, should we leave it there?
Yeah, playoff fever, catch it.
Yeah.
Let's go Red Bulls.
We want the cup.
All right. Till then.